Welcome to the program. Well, in Victoria, it was Ash Wednesday. In Tasmania, Black Tuesday. And in recent summers, South Australia and New South Wales have been ravaged by bushfires. In every case, major suburbs, even city centres, were threatened. Australia, though, isn't an isolated hotspot. Experts report that California, parts of the Mediterranean coast and Sweden are set to burn. Broadly, the fire watchers agree on the nature of the problem. With people moving off the land and the suburbs spreading, there's too much debris building up on the forest floor, just waiting for a match, a spark or a lightning strike to create an inferno. What they can't quite agree on is the solution. The new school of thought says massive controlled burning is the only way to go if we're to prevent further disasters. On the other side, conservationists argue that the problem is being overstated and warn that too much burning will destroy ecosystems and rare animal species. In just a few moments, we'll be joined by one of the world's leading experts on bushfires and conservationists in Australia and America. But first, this report from Anne-Maria Nicholson.
The Dandenongs are burning again. Unlike the past, when this rural retreat east of Melbourne was devastated time and time again by wildfire, this fire has been deliberately lit.
We're burning about 5 hectares of national park in a strategic area to stop the spread of wildfire in future years.
Kevin Giblin is leading a team of government workers on an increasingly common mission in Australia. They're burning the bush before it burns them.
We hope to remove about 60% of the ground fuel, the leaf litter on the ground, and about the same percentage of the bark on the trees. None of the results from the burning today will actually harm the trees.
Deliberately setting fire to the country, known as prescribed or controlled burning, is nothing new in this continent or any other. Aborigines and other Indigenous peoples have always used fire to control the landscape.
The Aboriginals had a strong feeling about the health of the country, and that if they saw what we can see here, they would say, this is rubbish.
Kakadu in the top end and Uluru in the red centre have reintroduced Aboriginal burning methods. These days, Commonwealth Park rangers work with local people to use fire to help manage these areas. It's been quite a turnaround. For many decades, Aborigines were prohibited from lighting fires.
Especially when we got an influx of professional European foresters who were brought up in a very European environment of where they believed all fire was bad. And that has caused us enormous troubles over the last 50 or so years.
Fire became a symbol of disorder. They had to be stopped, and the same was true in North America. All the while, uncontrolled forest growth increased the risks, literally fueling inevitable fires. The best technologies of the late 20th century still can't compete with wildfires. Recently, they've scorched California, New South Wales, southern France, Portugal and Russia. There are now fears that the amount of forest fuel around the world is growing to dangerous levels and more huge fires are inevitable.
The only way to control disastrous fires is to lower the fuel concentrations. And I don't think the purpose of lowering fuel concentrations by burning is really to make the forest safer, but to make them healthier.
Australian history is marked by fire disasters, with names as evocative as our famous battles fought on distant shores. It was the turn of West Australia in 1961. 4 towns were lost, and it was a turning point for the state that now does more prescribed burning than anywhere in the world.
Well, it's been shown to be very, very effective. Since '61, we've had no large fires causing any large damage to property, or communities or forests. We've got innumerable examples where we had extreme days similar to Ash Wednesday days.
The eastern states also started controlled burns, but it was either not enough or never could be enough to prevent the horror of Ash Wednesday. This memorial in the Dandenongs is a painful reminder of the human tragedy of bushfires. In February 1983, around 70 people perished in the Ash Wednesday fires. More than 20 were from the small Victorian community. Yet 12 years on, it's hard to imagine that this green oasis was once at the centre of one of our worst fire disasters. And when you look around, it seems that many people here have forgotten the fire danger. Like so many parts of Australia, where the city meets the country, the bush comes virtually to the door. That's what happened in January last year, when Sydney-siders were enjoying another long, hot summer. Fire burst into the suburbs. Fear and confusion usurped the lethargy. New South Wales fire authorities have responded by burning 10 times more bush this year than in the previous decade. But bushfire scientist David Packham says forest fuel levels are still dangerously high.
We've seen the Ash Wednesday fires in 1983, we've seen the New South Wales fires in 1994. They are very small and insignificant compared to the potential which we can have. If we got a repeat of the weather conditions that occurred in 1939, where there were 3 Ash Wednesdays in 1 week, I think that we'd be totally surprised at the absolutely devastating result.
Rick Sneejak manages the fire program for 20 million hectares in West Australia. He claims research on grass trees from the state's Jarrah forests prove Aborigines burnt the forests every year or two.
The plants respond very well to fire, as they have done over millions of years. The richness of the number of species that returns after burn is higher than they would be in long unburnt areas.
In the United States, the powerful Forest Service has also been rethinking its fire strategy. Once fire was called the enemy of the forest. Now Chief Jack Ward Thomas and his people are trying to persuade Americans that fire is in fact good. Thomas recently told the US Senate that returning fire to the forest was essential for both forest health and the protection of life and property. But prescribed burning is not universally acceptable. Most conservationists these days accept some burning is necessary, but critics point to the irreversible destruction of flora and fauna and smoke pollution. Yet in the long run, it seems that no amount of burning can totally prevent disastrous fires.
Well, Australian forests today are at their greatest risk from fire or the misuse of fire than they have been for, say, 60,000 years, ever since the Indigenous people have come to these shores.